Welcome to 33 Voices, everyone. It is a beautiful day to join us on the show because we are here with the radiant Nyakio Grieco. Nyakio is the founder of her beloved skincare brand, Nyakio Beauty, and most recently, 13 Lune. 13 Lune is an incredible commerce and community platform spotlighting beauty brands founded by Black and Brown founders and creating a space for authentic allyship. What I love most about Nyakio is how bright her light shines in everything that she does. I'm telling you, this woman glows, and I'm so happy to have you here, my friend. Thank you so much for joining
Oh,
us.
thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored and thank you for that beautiful intro.
You genuinely shine in every aspect of your life, your family and your friends, your purpose in giving back. And you've shared that it's your faith that really keeps you grounded in all of that. So I wanted to start at the heart of it. What is your prayer for yourself? What's your intention for who you want to be and how you want to be?
Gosh, that's a great question. I mean, I think one of the greatest things that comes with age and now as I'm towards the end of my 40s is that it's really grasping what we've always been taught, or at least what I've always been taught, which is, the world is so much bigger than just you, and, always making sure to be considering and considerate of others. I think what's really happened for me in my 40s, and as I've, gone through this journey with my career and grown with my family and my friends, is that it's really steeped in how is it that I am serving the collective, right? So it's really, how is it that by living in my joy, living in my purpose, dreaming bigger, questioning, not questioning, all of it, how is that actually serving the collective? And I think it's given me a better grasp on self and understanding of myself, and also helped me to have more direction and be intentional in what it is that I want to kind of output.
And I know a lot of this started with your mom too. How did she teach you to pray boldly?
It was something that always resonated with me. Not because I felt that if my prayers were any louder, they would be answered, but by praying boldly, it was like praying with conviction, praying with real intention, not being afraid of whatever that prayer is, and really leaning into it. So yeah, it's something that I've always loved that she says and that she emulates.
I think conviction is such an important part of that because you had in a previous interview talked about the advice that you would give your younger self. And you said, your words matter. Don't be afraid to speak up. What you put out into the universe comes back to you. So do it
Mhm.
all. And like you were saying with the tone of our prayer, it's not about how loudly we're speaking into the universe. It's really what
Mhm.
we're saying and what's that clarity of purpose and what's our clarity of intention. How do you speak
Mhm.
things into existence into your life?
Mhm. Wow. Well, so manifestation and affirmations have always been something that are really, not always, but definitely since I discovered the power of manifesting in my 20s have been, deeply important to me. And so I think it's that. I think it's, you know, being open to receive, based on whatever it is that we're putting out into the universe, that we're asking for, that we're manifesting, that we're calling in, and not just for ourselves, but for others, for the collective, for humanity, and just doing that consistently, I think, is really where that happens for me.
I think a part of that conviction too that has manifested so beautiful for you in your life is that you live with a sense of urgency around the present moment, sharing that if you
Mhm.
don't do what matters to you right now, the moment will pass you by. How do you
Mhm.
harness the potential of regret to make the right choices right now in big and little ways?
Mm. It's so interesting because I've, I've always had a real trigger to the word regret, to the words failure, because I think that even in what the world would define as our failures, or we would define as our failures, or things that we regret, that we experienced growth. in those moments. And so while there are things that have happened in my life that I don't necessarily want to go back and repeat, I don't know that I regret any of it because they really led me to this moment right now. And I think part of that urgency for me of living in the present is that the past has already happened, so there's no use in really going back there unless you're really just reflecting on key learnings and growth and things that you want to improve on by looking at the past. It's gone. The future is not guaranteed. The present is all we are actually guaranteed because it's right now. And so make the best of the right now moments.
I want to dive a little bit deeper into that through the lens of ambition. When you were asked to
Mhm.
describe yourself in 3 words, you said curious, happy, and ambitious. For me,
Mhm.
those are an incredible recipe when they're in alignment. But when
Right.
ambition starts to outpace the other two, it ends up easily becoming a primary focus, which is something that I
Mhm.
don't look back on very
Mhm.
fondly. How do you maintain a sense of genuine contentment in the present moment amidst striving?
It's so interesting. I mean, I think a big part of that, it's also some advice I've given to my younger self, which is like, you have to go easy on yourself. I mean, you're only capable of doing exactly what you're doing, right? And so when you're operating in that alignment, um, so yeah, I mean, I think in my own experience, it's definitely about honoring the journey, understanding that obstacles are just challenges that we have to figure out a way to get over, that they're not forever, that obstacles are not necessarily permanent, and understanding that they're there to serve some purpose. um, and yeah, being really mindful and committed to living in the present is the only way that it works. I mean, I'm all about dreaming and wishing for the future. I mean, I think that's also important. But dreaming and wishing is different than future forecasting. Um, Dreaming and wishing is putting manifestation and hope into action. Where I think that future forecasting is putting a lot of pressure on the outcome.
Putting hope into action. I love that. And we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. But I want to speak a little bit more about some of those obstacles because something that I really admire in your journey is that you've always had the courage to say no when things aren't
Mhm,
right for you, even if it meant
mhm,
that you had to start over or you were going to have to take a
mhm,
much slower route or reinvent yourself. What role
mhm.
does integrity and following your own truth play in your life?
Hmm. I mean, I think that so much of our integrity is tied to our gut, and that when we're living in integrity, our body almost physically tells us this is the way to go, or the opposite. Um, this isn't necessarily living in an integrous or an integrous choice for you. And I've had experiences of both, of really leading with my gut and knowing that this is the direction I need to be going into, and also choosing not to listen to it, and trying to manufacture my own outcome, even though I could feel those obstacles and inner tellings that maybe this isn't the choice. And so I think when you do that enough, you really start to lean into trusting your gut more. And I think that's what integrity is. It's like really truly living in your truth, um, and learning to listen to your gut while you're making choices.
And being able, you and I have discussed this before too, of actually literally listening to your body. How do you
Mhm,
feel right
mhm,
now? because a lot of
Right.
times the answer is in there during some of the times when perhaps you didn't listen to your gut or you faced a really big challenge. You've said that the most
Mhm.
amazing things in life tend to happen right at the moment that you're about to give up hope. What
Mhm.
manifested for you in your life that gave you that belief? Because that's a pretty big one.
Gosh, I mean, I think it's a few things. It's everything from a broken heart when you're young to, maybe not getting into the college that was my first choice, um, leaving my career to start a beauty industry and it being quite challenging in the beginning. You know, I think that hope that just is solidified the more and more experiences that I've had where I've also experienced a trajectory of knowing this is exactly why I went through what I just went through so that I could be here in this joyful moment.
How do you keep the faith? And I ask because one of my favorite quotes is from Brother David Steindl Rast when he says, "Hope is openness for surprise. And if you trust life, it will surprise you and it will always bring you
Mm-hmm.
good things." And sometimes when you're
Mm-hmm.
in the midst of that and you're trying to trust life, but you're also kind of like, "God, are you there?" Like,
Yeah.
need a little
Yeah.
bit of help here. How do you keep the
Yeah.
faith?
My gosh. I mean, I think it also goes back to, someone said to me, I think it was after I lost my father in 2013, and it was a very surprising death. He passed away from an aortic aneurysm, and so it was very sudden, very unexpected. My dad was a very healthy man, and it's in moments like that, especially in grief, that you really, it's a real practice to lean into your faith. And I remember saying, it's just so hard, to a friend of mine. My dad was, just such a vibrant man. He was still so healthy. He had so much more to do. He had just retired. And I don't know. I don't understand sometimes, even though I've got my faith. And my friend said to me, God isn't there. God, whoever your God is love. But God isn't there to make bad things happen. God's just there to pick you up when they do. And so the faith doesn't have to be in he only creates miracles. The miracle, she, the miracle is that they are there to pick you up when you need them the most. And so I think that really helps me on the daily with things that maybe aren't even as difficult as grief, but challenging days, an investor saying no, not hearing back from a brand that I really want to pursue for 13 Lin, whatever it is that, you know, uh, my God, my faith, this experience, my resilience will pick me up and take me to the next place of joy. And I know that is true because it happens.
That is such a remarkable reframing. And I love the trust that it gives you that you are where you are meant to be. You are being guided to where you are meant to go. And as you think of those experiences, you've talked about strength being the thing that makes you beautiful. Where do you derive
Mhm.
your strength? What has made you strong?
Mm. I mean, the first thing that came to mind is my ancestors, um, the women in my life, the ones I'm related to by blood, and the ones that I choose as family, my girlfriends. Um, yeah, my husband, my children. You know, to be loved, um, and cared for and nurtured in the way that I am by my community, by my tribe, by my family, gives me strength because I know no matter what, no matter how many times I fall off the bike and I have to start over, or I've been challenged in my life and didn't know how I was going to make it to the next month, paying the bills, what was going to happen with my brand. The second or third time I had to reinvent it, that I always had them and have them to help me, even in those hard moments, continue to believe in my own strength and my own resilience.
And you've shared in the realm of that the beautiful Maya Angelou quote, I come as one, I stand as 10,000, and that your mom
Mhm.
has reminded you that your angels and your ancestors are always with you. And I think that sometimes we forget to call on them. I do.
Mhm.
And when I
Mhm.
remember, whatever we all believe, it does give you a different sense of strength.
Mhm. It really does. And it also, I think, helps me to realize that, like, I'm not doing this alone, you know. Um I've had experiences, especially, with my first brand, Nikeo, which was based on family beauty secrets from Kenya, and my grandmother Nikeo, and my grandfather, a medicine man, and these ancestors of mine who I know are with me every day. And when I've gone through complicated, business can be complicated, and being an entrepreneur, and you know rights and ownership, and all of those things can get complicated sometimes, and the direct messaging that always comes through my ancestors when I'm seeking and really remembering, as you say, to lean on them, is that, like, this just overwhelming feeling of, like, we've got you. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep sowing those, you know, seeds, and keep growing, and keep bringing more to the garden. And we're here to help it grow. So I think, yeah, there's real power in truly just relying on those ancestors and loved ones who are always with you.
It's making me tear up a little bit here because the way that you describe that as a garden, it almost makes me feel like they're in the garden with you.
Mhm.
Like you might not
Mhm.
be able to see them, but they're there kind of nurturing everything that you want
Mm.
to nurture. I'm so grateful that you shared that. And you mentioned a couple of things that lend to the idea of reinvention. And I think for
Mhm.
you, living in integrity has led to a couple of reinventions. What
Mhm.
role has it played in your life? And how do you think about your ongoing evolution as a person? Because I really see you as someone who has and continues, of course, to play an active role in your own becoming.
Right. I mean, it's so interesting. Um, growth is hard. Growing is hard. It's hard. It can be painful. Your bones hurt, your muscles hurt. And for me, the role that it's really played in my journey, it has forced me to grow up in ways that I never imagined possible. And um, it's also really helped me to manage my ego, um, when I'm in those moments of transition and growth and change, and also, to our earlier point, strengthen my faith. Um, when I said, I have a real triggers to the words like regret and failure, I often say my trigger with failure, I always liken it to the analogy that when my children were learning to ride bikes and they would fall down, I didn't say to them, get up, you're failing, or you're a failure. The only failure was not getting back up on the bike. And when you fall off a bike, as most of us have experienced, it hurts, you get scraped up. It's kind of the last thing you want to do is get back up on the bike and ride it again, to quite possibly fall soon after. And when you do get on that bike again, scraped up and all, and you start to ride, and then you realize that you found your balance and your rhythm, and that you're in control of this next route, then you learn to love to ride the bike, and you feel empowered and you feel strong. And those moments of reinvention or do-overs, as I've had several of. Um, they're humbling, and at times devastating, but there's no greater feeling than getting back up on that bike and starting again, and having the cheerleaders that I have in my life who helped me to get there, who are there to champion. I mean, I joke with my friends all the time, like, how many different dinners are we going to have where you guys are celebrating the launch of Nikeo Beauty? Because it's happened so many times, but the same women still show up with the champagne and, pre-COVID, make those restaurant reservations at the place in the moment that I love, and toast me and honor me, and then wildly shop for these products because they believe in what I set out to do 20 years ago, and will continue in every evolution to do that. And I too, for them in their journeys and whatever they're doing, and however they have chosen to live out their lives. And not all of them are entrepreneurs. Not all of them even work, but they all have been called to a greater purpose in their lives. And so that's, that makes those moments of reinvention a lot less painful and a lot more fun.
And you articulated one moment in that I haven't heard anyone articulate. This was so beautiful. There is a moment when you get back on the bike and you have this, sometimes depending on how big the reinvention was, but you kind of have this quiet moment of, I can still do this. And like a reassurance that builds almost a different type of conviction, or a deeper conviction. And I love how you shaped that, because I think that we've all felt that in different ways. And I want to talk about one of your big life lessons, because I think this is one that we all experience. You've shared that your greatest lesson was to know your worth, and your greatest mistake was not believing in it. What was most instrumental for you in knowing your worth?
Seeing myself not valued. So, being in relations with someone who I believed knew my worth, that absolutely didn't, or did and chose to ignore it. But knowing in my gut, I didn't believe them, and I still went into community and partnership with this person. So yeah, I mean, I think there's no greater way than to be assured of your worth than to know it going into a situation, choose not to honor it, and then to have to fight for it. But there's a lesson in that too. Like, I'll never do that again, right? I'll never discount my worth just to be in partnership with someone else.
It's a huge life lesson. And I love that you were sharing that it had to happen in order for you to learn it, because I was thinking to myself, like, do we really have to go through that? Because we all do, and it's not fun. But you already answered that one. And I think there's another element of knowing your worth. It's also personally believing that you are worthy. It's not just about playing bigger, but really at the root of it, it's wanting more for yourself and believing that you deserve it. How do you have an abundant mindset? Like, what does abundance feel like to you?
I mean, I think abundance is living in your greatest place of peace and joy. And, it's interesting. I said this to my 15-year-old daughter yesterday, who was having like a moment with one of her girlfriends, and I was encouraging her to, communicate and kind of stand up for herself. And her response was that she didn't want to make this person mad. And I said, what I've learned in my own life is that people will match you and treat you in the way that you treat yourself. People will love you and match you in their love when they observe how you love yourself. Same with respect. So the greatest gift that you can give yourself is to love yourself the most and in the most integrous way, to respect yourself the most and the most integrous way, to believe in yourself the most and the most integrous way, because what you're giving to yourself will emulate through you to the outside world, and it will give people an idea of how you want to be treated. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it really boils down to that. It's that we all have to love ourselves the most, and the most healthy egoic way.
There's always got to be that little caveat with that one, but I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I think that self-love is such an embodiment of wholeness, and it's a radical idea for a lot of us to love ourselves the most. You've shared that you feel the most beautiful and peaceful in your 40s, and you feel that sense of embodiment. What has contributed to that for you? What have you shed that has freed you?
I mean, I was, which is the case for many entrepreneurs, quite the perfectionist growing up. And for some reason, I had convinced myself that I had to know exactly who I was going to be, what I was going to be when I grew up, what my path would be, where I would be 20 years later at like 19, which, you know, I really did spend a lot of those younger formative years of my life being really twisted up about who I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be and being perfect at all of it. And then realizing as I was kind of moving towards my, you know, Saturn return and into my 30s, like, whoa, I really missed out on some fun and good times when I was so wrapped up in needing to know every little detail of my life. And then by my 30s, really having the realization that you're not supposed to know all of that in your 20s. If you do, great. If you don't, you're with the majority. And that's when you're supposed to be doing all the things, the travel, the experiences, the different jobs, the different people. That is the most beautiful time in your life. And for most people, you're not married, you don't have kids, you're literally responsible for taking care of one person, and that's yourself. And that's what your 20s are about. So I kind of figured that out in my 30s. And then in my 30s, I'd become an entrepreneur. I had my first child. Then I had my second child. I'd been married, all of those things. And I was growing up. And then I thought, oh my gosh, this is when you're just supposed to, you know, be able to do it all and do it all in balance and all perfectly. And it was a very big time in the early 2000s for, you know, being able to do it all and do it perfectly and lean in and, you know, all of the things. And then I realized, like, I'm not doing 100% at any one thing, but I'm doing my best. And it was really when I hit my 40s that I really embraced that there's no such thing as doing it all. You are technically doing it all, but doesn't mean that you're doing it all well. And that's okay. And that sometimes my business is going to get 80% of me, and my friends and family will only get 20, until I'm able to then figure out whatever project it is I'm working on or travels that I'm doing. And then I come back in, and then there's a shift. And it's okay that the business is having to take a little bit of a back seat in those moments that I'm with and connecting with my family, connecting with my friends, there for my children. It's okay. It doesn't have to be 24/7 all the time, like I thought in my 30s. And so I think for me, the 40s have really just been a culmination of observing the past 2 decades of my life and realizing what worked, what didn't work, and what I want more of. And just doing that in peace. And I also have a greater appreciation for things that I didn't appreciate as much when I was younger. I didn't appreciate, you know, I always wanted to be thinner. I wanted my hair to be longer. I wanted this, I wanted that. And now I just literally sit in such gratitude all the time for the 2 feet that carry me, for my mind, for my vision, even though I need readers, you know, all of those things that I have always been a gracious person and been in gratitude, but, was much harder on myself about things that were absolutely beautiful and wonderful and part of me. Um, and now I just feel grateful that, to have my health first and foremost, to have the health of my loved ones and my kids, and to be able to get up and go and still have the energy to create.
Energy just in general is something that I think we take for granted. At least I shouldn't speak
Mhm.
for everyone. I take for granted a lot the ability to get up and do what you want to do physically,
Mhm.
mentally,
Mhm.
emotionally. And it's something that
Mhm.
I try to remind myself of. You mentioned your friends, and you are the ultimate friend. And I know that friendship is a very defining pillar in your life. You've had friends literally since the second grade, and you still all see each other, which is so beautiful. What
Yeah.
makes a true soul friendship for you?
Mm. I don't know. I mean, I feel that it's just the gift of seeing ourselves in one another. I think, um, creating the space to support one another, creating the space to be brutally honest with one another when needed. Um, but just the trusted faith of, you know, just kind of this consistency that gets stronger and stronger over years. And I do believe in soul connections and soul contracts. I mean, I don't think it's an accident that so many of my friends and I share the same astrological sign, because I we joke because it's like the only ones that can get each other, or handle each other. But I think I believe in those kind of soul contracts that, like, it's kind of like dating was when I was younger. It's like you would meet someone and you would just kind of instantly know that there was that connection. I have the same thing with my girlfriends.
It's something that you can feel for sure. And you mentioned them getting together around the table to celebrate Nikeo Beauty and to celebrate you. And I know that circling is a ritual that you've all had
Mhm.
together. I think you were saying for almost 20 years now, where you set intentions and dreams with your friends in accordance with the moon cycle. You
Mhm.
shared that that's really inspired you to dream bigger. What does it give you, that
Mhm.
practice?
Oh my gosh. Well, it gives you, first of all, it's just a beautiful practice that I started with. My friend Andrea Bendewald started hosting circles in her teepee in her backyard back many, many moons ago. And I had the pleasure of joining that teepee in a little over 15, 16 years ago. And, you know, it was the first time that I had ever, sat in kind of ritual with other women. We hang out together all the time, we socialize, we talk on the phone, all of the things. But this was a place that really gave us the opportunity to truly show up for ourselves. We use a talking stick, so whoever has the talking stick has the floor. So it also taught us how to slow down and be active listeners, because when you don't have the talking stick, you're just solely focused on what the other person is saying and wishing for, and you're holding the space for that. um, and then everything that happens in our circle stays in the circle. So even if I'm having dinner with the same girls the next night, we don't ever talk about what happened in the circle unless somebody wants to bring it up of themselves. And so there's just this safety in it that really allows us to be so honest with ourselves and with others. And we do set intentions. We also let go of things and ritual. We also um manifest and make affirmations, and then we're not only holding the space for it for our own dreams, but we're doing it for one another collectively, so that the circle's just stronger together.
It's absolutely stronger together. And there's something so special about, it's wonderful to see your own dreams come true, but when you get to see a friend have their dream come true and you know what it means to them, like that fills you in such an incredible way. And I'm now imagining all the ways that you've all done that for each other over the last 15, 16 years. And speaking of friends, you are the absolute queen of birthday messages. I think this might be like your third career. You could be open a card company and you could write all of these amazing messages. But in one that you had written to your friend Kat, you thanked her for encouraging you to dance in the many corners of the world. And as we near our close here and reflect on your journey, that really evoked a feeling for me of a life well lived, dancing in the many
Mm,
corners of the world. What does it mean to you, Nikeo, to live for you personally, for your family, to live a beautiful life?
mm. I mean, I think it just means to live a full life, to do it all and see it all and experience it all, but do it in a way that you can slow down enough to appreciate it. And so my friend Kat is one of the greatest livers of life that I know. And so we've had the opportunity to dance in many corners of the world, for her birthday in Greece and on the East Coast and on many beaches. And we celebrate every Christmas Eve together with our families and sing and dance around a piano. And, to me, that is a life well lived because it's lived in community with those that I love, championing each other's dreams, truly all working to just make this world a better place. But because of so many of these experiences, our children are involved. It's really inspiring the next generation to, strive to live their life in the same way, which is beautiful.
Being a liver of life is one of the greatest things that we can pass down. And as we get to our very sadly last question here, you embody so much wisdom. And I'd love to close with the lesson that you're most grateful to have truly internalized. And then, speaking of your beautiful and very talented kids, the lesson that you most hope to pass down to them.
Mm, gosh, the lesson that I've probably gotten the most out of, that I've internalized and has affected my life the most, is definitely you are enough. You are more than enough. And the lesson that I would pass down to my kids is exactly the same. You are enough. You are more than enough.
That is so beautiful. And as you are saying it, I can confirm that I think that they're absolutely internalizing that, because they do these incredible solo dance performances that
It's the
blew
best.
me away. It takes so much courage to do that. And you have such a beautiful family and life, and you're making such an extraordinary impact in the world every day. I'm so grateful that we got to share this time together. Thank you so much for inspiring
Thank
us and lifting
you.
us up and just spreading your glow, because you're radiant.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And I love this conversation so much. And I'm just so honored to be here with you. Thank you.